This episode of Pots and Trowels is brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Mr. Fothergill's. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Today we're going to be sowing tender vegetables and clearing away some old leaves from the border. Well, we're starting this week in the borders, and over the last couple of weeks Jill and I have been busy just weeding, forking them over, doing a bit of transplanting and thinning and pruning just to get them all ready for the summer really. The other thing we're doing, of course, now the daffodils are starting to go over, is we're doing a bit of deadheading, taking off these old flowers, but we're not cutting down the foliage, and that not only makes the plant look better, but it means all the energy in the leaves goes back down to build the bulbs up for next year. So we're going to work our way around the garden. I'll just chuck that down there. We'll pick that up later, I do promise. And you may wonder also why I've got a leaf vac with me at this time of the year. We normally use these in the autumn when all the leaves are falling off the trees. Well, it's because under some of the bigger shrubs at the back of the borders there are lots of dry leaves, and normally we would leave them and they would rot down, but because we've had no rain for over a month they've really dried out. And as soon as we get a little bit of breeze, they blow all over the place and we're continuously picking up dead leaves. So what I've thought I'd do is I'll hoover them up just to get rid of them. So this is a really good way of doing it if you've got one, because not only does it suck them up, but it shreds them into much smaller pieces. So I'm just going to... So it's a bit noisy and a bit dusty because it's so dry, but that will get them out there. And the reason I want to shred them is because they're going to go onto the compost heap. And you can see that what it's done, if I open this zipper here on the back of the shredder, it's chopped them up into really fine pieces. So what I'll do is stick these on the compost heap. They'll get mixed in with grass cuttings and other green waste, and they will rot down really well and make compost that we can then recycle and put back on the garden next year. So it's a good way to tidy up and reuse all those last autumn leaves. Now there's a group of vegetables that we call tender vegetables, and that includes things like sweet corn and French beans and runner beans and marrows and courgettes. And the reason we call them tender is because you can't plant them out or even sow them in the garden while there's still a danger of frost. They're a bit like a bedding plant, they need that little bit of protection. So if you're going to sow them outside, you've really got to wait probably until May time, so that by the time they've germinated and come through, the weather's going to be warmer and hopefully the danger of frost gone. But you can start them off early just to give them a head start, and it gives them a longer growing season, which in the case of things like squashes and sweet corn can make the difference between the crops ripening later on in the summer. So to do that, you can do them in pots, you can do them in trays. You need somewhere protected, so it doesn't have to have a lot of heat, but a greenhouse or a cold frame or even a conservatory sunny windowsill is a great place to start them off. So sort of things to sow in, small pots are ideal for things like French beans or sweet corn. These are fibre pots, or you can use, standard 3.5-inch pot. I like to use the cell trays, so you can get them in varying sizes. This one's got 9, so in this one I'm going to put things like sweet corn and French beans, and then the bigger cells. These are all bedding plant trays. I probably put runner beans because they're bigger plants and stronger growing, and marrows and courgettes. And it's really easy to do. Just fill them with compost, get your seed, and then it's just a case of, this is sweet corn. I always think these look so dried up that they're never going to grow, but it's amazing they do. And it's make a hole in each of the trays and just pop in one seed into each one, and they will germinate, say, without really any heat, as long as you can keep the frost off them. And then they'll need watering in, put a label in them of course, and then just cover them over and pop them somewhere where you can give them a little bit of protection if you can. If there's no heat in the greenhouse, something like a propagator with just a Perspex lid on there, just to give them that little bit of protection. The only thing I would say is you've got to keep your eye on them, keep them watered if the weather does dry out, and if it's a really hot sunny day, maybe just put a sheet of newspaper over there just until they've germinated, just to stop them getting too hot in there and the seeds sort of drying out. The other thing you can sow now as well, It's cucumbers, greenhouse cucumbers, but these do need warmth. So you've got to have a heated propagator or start them off in the house where it's warmer. And I like to use clay pots for these, for the simple reason is clay pots drain well. And one thing cucumbers don't like is to be in wet, cold compost. So I just use clay pots. If you haven't got them, don't worry. Plastic pots are fine. Just be careful that you don't overwater them. So cucumbers you can do at the same time, but remember they do need warmth. And hopefully within a week or two's time, everything will be germinating. We can grow them on nice and steadily, and then by mid-May we're going to have strong plants that we can put outside into the garden. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels. And just one final thing, if you've been sowing vegetables outside in the garden, you've had no rain, make sure you give them a drink just to keep the soil moist. We'll be back next time when we're going to be back in the vegetable plot, and we'll also be doing a bit of pruning. See you then. Bye.